Hello everyone, back tuning into today's first video, doing a GWV Sunday Round-Up for today's first video. As was on Sunday, we're going to have our eclectic mix of this and that. We're going to begin by having a look at the latest observations. We are slowly but surely, in fact rather quickly now, pulling out of the freezer across the country. Still cold in the far north of Scotland, but won't be for much longer. The beast from the east is in full retreat now. So we'll have a look at that. We'll have a look at some indexes. QBO, the AO, the NEO. We'll have a look at the GWV solar tracker, and of course the weather for next week to 10 days as well. Got some quite interesting weather coming up next weekend potentially. A real burst of warmth could hit France, Spain and France next weekend. Proper spring-like weather there perhaps. Whether that gets to us, I'm not sure, because it might just fuel an area of low pressure for us and give us quite a lot of wet weather next weekend. So I'll show you what's going on with that towards the end of the video. Just say, coming up later on this afternoon, we're going to have the sneak peek for the summer. So we released a spring forecast, of course, a week ago today. Kind of got swamped a bit by all of the cold and beast from the east stuff that was going on this time last week. But we did issue the spring forecast a week ago. So now that's out of the way. The long-range bandwagon kind of rolls on. And for the next 3 months, we're going to be doing updates for the summer, culminating at the end of May in the GWV's summer 2018 forecast. So set the scene for that. We're going to have a little bit of a sneak peek coming up this afternoon on the summer updates and forecast page. Have a look at that later on this afternoon. Probably be around 3-4 o'clock, something like that. Right, so I'll begin with the observations. This is the latest from XC Weather. So we can see that it's still quite cold in the north. A little bit of blue still showing up here across Scotland. So some of our stations such as Aviemore and Inverness are still pretty cold. Kinloss close to freezing, somewhere there. Loch Glascarnock, hope I've pronounced that correctly, is at -1, and coming down to Tulloch Bridge, they're hovering around freezing as well. However, we go further south and we see temperatures are picking up. So, for example, at Shap, we're at freezing there. Leeds and Bradford is at freezing. Doncaster is at 3, going further south still. We find Wittering at 3 degrees. We find, well, that obviously is quite incorrect. It's not 24 degrees at Wellersbourne Airfield, so let's try somewhere else. It's 3 degrees at Church Lawford. Going a little bit further south, so that weather station to Western Aerodrome is at 4 degrees. Let's come a bit further south, and Farnborough is at 8 degrees. I mean, down on the south coast, Bournemouth is at 9 degrees, as is St Catherine Point, and Shoreham is at 7 degrees. Let's come down to West Country, and we find that Cardinham is at 7 degrees, and Camborne is at 8 degrees. So the further south you go, the milder it's getting. Ignore that 24 degrees just there. That's wrong. We haven't reached 24 degrees today anywhere in the UK, and probably won't do for several weeks yet. But we will do eventually, of course, and you'll start to get to that sort of temperature as we get closer towards the summer. But for today, the cold air is up in the northern part of the country, but it's in retreat. These milder temperatures from the south are heading north, and we are coming quite quickly now to the end of the big freeze. Quite a bit of precipitation around today. Now, in northern parts of the country, it's still cold enough for that to be snow. So here's our precipitation type radar image from the Weather Outlook. We've got plenty of pink still showing up across eastern parts of Scotland, so snow for northern east of Scotland. A band of rain, sleet and snow here just heading in towards southern parts of Scotland. Some quite heavy falls still there of wet snow. Further south we go, the more we go more and more towards rain. So there's a bit of a wintry mix over the Pennines. Anywhere further south of that, really, it is primarily rain. Now, having a look at the dew point, you'll see why that is. So, for Scotland, the dew point is still generally at or a little bit below freezing, but for England and Wales, the dew points have gone positive. And when the dew point is above freezing, it can't possibly snow. So this milder air from the south is heading northwards, and here's our temperatures again, just confirming within the south. It's already really quite mild now. Temperatures up to 7-8 degrees. Still hanging on by fingertips to cold air up across Scotland, but it's on its way out, even up there in the next 24 or so hours. Keep in mind that these temperatures are now rising quite quickly down in the south. And certainly for southwestern parts of the country, down in southwest Wales, some parts of the West Country, southwest Midlands, we have got a lot of snow, with temperature going up quite quickly now. That's going to melt very quickly. And so we are going to have problems, I would have thought, with flooding here. So this will all run off into the river system very quickly, and there's certainly potential for getting some high river totals and maybe even some localised flooding in the next couple of days. Right, this is the QBO, the quasi-biennial oscillation. This is an index that's kind of reflecting the strength of the zonal westerlies. We've been in an easterly QBO through this winter, which is possibly one of the reasons we've had a slightly colder winter this winter. By the way, we will be evaluating the winter forecast in a week or so's time. We're just waiting for the climate averages to update for the winter of 17-18. At the UK Met Office, and then we'll be able to bring you that evaluation of the winter forecast. I think done reasonably well, but we'll wait and see what the confirmation is when they update at the UK Met. Anyway, in the EC QBO, and it's continuing. This is 2017 just here. We started the year in a westerly QBO with these positive numbers just here. So that's when you're in a westerly QBO, the zonal westerlies are strengthened. But through the second half of last year, went into the easterly QBO with those negative numbers appearing. This is 2018 just here, when we're still negative. So January's QBO number came out at minus 19.02, and February's was very similar, minus 19.37. This isn't the strongest QBO we've ever had by any means, but it is a proper easterly QBO, and as it goes along with a reduced strength of the zonal westerlies, and it's probably one of the reasons why we've had a colder winter. This from the University of Berlin website. Again, this is just updating. It's confirmation that we remain in the easterly QBO. So on this chart, the white areas are the easterly QBOs. The grey areas, darker areas, are the westerly QBOs. You'll see where we are right now. This is 2017-2018. We're in this white area just here. So the easterly QBO continues. Notice up there's a little bit of grey just starting to appear right at the very top there. That is the beginnings of the next westerly QBO. We won't go into the next westerly QBO until the second half of the year, I wouldn't have thought. They transition over summer, so the QBO will be something that we'll look at a lot through the summer updates, actually. It will probably be quite an important factor for this summer as we may begin to transition from easterly to westerly QBO. But that's just the very beginnings of it beginning to appear on this chart. This is what's happening in the ocean, sea surface temperature anomalies. So let's deal with the Pacific Ocean first of all. By the way, we've been waiting for February's ENSO update. It got cancelled, really, by all of the cold and snow updates. I was having to do snow washing, all that kind of thing. So February's ENSO update was cancelled. We'll bring you the March ENSO update towards the end of month. Sorry about that, but everything just got a bit hectic with all of the beasts from the east stuff. But I'll just show you what's happening in the ENSO region, which is from Peru just there to Indonesia over here. The blue colours there, those are the colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies across the equatorial Pacific. That's a signature of La Nina. We have been in a La Nina through this winter, albeit quite a weak one. It's fading out now. You'll notice over here towards the eastern side of the equatorial Pacific Ocean, we are starting to see the blue disappearing, blue colours disappearing. So sea surface temperature anomalies there are beginning to rise. You'll expect this to happen because you go into spring. You kind of revert to ENSO neutral usually, and then it's a case by summer of waiting to see where you go to next. So again, ENSO, what's happening with La Nina, El Nino, all that kind of thing, will make up quite an important factor with the summer updates. But at the moment, the weak La Nina that had over winter is fading back to ENSO neutral, particularly in the eastern portion of the equatorial Pacific Ocean. Further north, we've got colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies close to the coast of Canada and America, so it's a little bit cooler there. In the Atlantic, the tropical Atlantic is looking quite cool, actually. That could be a fairly important factor as we get through into the summer. If that continues, it might dampen down this year's hurricane season, but it's a very long way off, and could well be by the summer we'll see those sea surface temperature anomalies starting to warm up then. Further north in the central Atlantic, it remains quite warm. To the south of Greenland, it's a little bit colder. Notice the shallow waters around the UK and Western Europe. They're looking really cold, and over in the North Sea as well. Those waters, as I say, they are shallow and they're subject to vast temperature changes with the weather. That's just a reflection, and down in the Mediterranean as well, you'll notice. It's all just a reflection, really, of the cold weather that we've had over the past few weeks. In the far north, in this area just here, which is like the Norwegian Sea, we remain quite warmer than average up there just at the moment. So activity next then, this is the latest disc on Outside of This Day from solarham.net. We've got a spotless sun at the moment, so obviously solar activity is at very low levels, and it's forecast to remain at very low levels, some sunspots anyway, for the next 3 days. This is the GWV Sunday Round-Up Solar Activity Tracker, just updated this morning by our friend James Ackroyd. Big thank you, James. Keep this updated as always, and we find that, again, no real changes from last week. The trend lines, which are the thick green and the thick red lines, they are flatlining at this very minimal level of solar activity. We aren't yet at solar minimum because we are still having regular days with sunspots, and then we have regular days in between without sunspots. So we're trading some days where we have 1 or 2 sunspots, some days where we don't have any sunspots at all. So again, we're just at that position where we are heading into solar minimum. We aren't at solar minimum yet, but we are at a minimal level of solar activity. And of course, when you are at a minimal level of solar activity, it kind of increases the blocking signal quite a bit, and in the winter anyway, particularly for the European side of the Arctic, can get an increase in the blocking signature, and northern blocking is the route to getting cold air out of the pole and down into the mid-latitude. So this is always one of the periods when you go into solar minimum, particularly when you come out of solar minimum. It's always one of the periods when you can increase the chance of colder winters. So over the next few years, you'd expect, doesn't guarantee anything, just kind of like loading the dice a bit in favour of colder winters. And in the next few years, you would expect the risk, anyway, of colder winters to increase. So it might be that this spell of the beast from the east that we just had is a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of a precursor of what may be to come in the next few winters. We, of course, will have to wait to see about that. Big thank you to James for keeping that updated for us, as always. And we'll continue to look at the solar tracker in the Sunday roundups in the next few weeks and months, of course. Right, we have a look at what's happening in the stratosphere next over North Pole. So I haven't looked at this for a little while. This is the temperature at 30 HPA. The grey line shows what those stratospheric temperatures have been doing. The black line, the grey line shows the trend for the time of year. The black line shows what the temperatures at 30 HPA in the stratosphere over North Pole have been doing. Earlier in the season, we had a very cold stratosphere at 30 HPA over North Pole. Then we had the sudden stratospheric warming back at in the early part of February. 3 very significant warmings of the stratosphere over North Pole at 30 HPA, and then just now we are actually dropping the temperature back down close to average. We're still a little bit above average, but we're heading back down with those temperatures at 30 HPA, heading back towards the grey line. I wouldn't expect us to go particularly cold in the next few weeks. It's probably too late in the season for that. And at some point we will probably get a final sudden stratospheric warming over the next month or two. And that sort of kills off the polar vortex for the summer. Mostly kills it off anyway. You do keep a little bit of energy in terms of polar vortex right way into the middle of summer actually. But mainly the polar vortex kind of like goes away as you get through into the summer. Anyway, we are seeing the temperature at 30 HPA dropping down at the moment. You have a look at 10 HPA, which is a bit higher up. Same sort of idea. So we had a warming at 10 HPA. Wasn't as significant as the warming that took place at 30 HPA, interestingly. That's where we are right now, and we are dropping down to a lower level, but we are still above the grey line, above the trend for the time of the year. Just have a look at a bit of forecast. We go back to the University of Berlin website. So this is how the ECMWF is predicting things at 30 HPA over the next 10 days, starting today, and you'll see the temperature. We've got the blue colours there. The black cross is the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere. You'll see that we've got the blue colour, so we've lowered the temperature. We know that, we already confirmed it, but we're just looking at, although it's still a little bit above average for the time of the year. That's at 96 hours, and again, got the blue colours there, so very close to, or maybe still a little bit above average. Then this is day 10. Again, no sign of any further warmings of the stratosphere up to day 10, which is the 13th of March. Keep those blue colours going over top of the North Pole. So it looks like we've finished really looking at the stratosphere now for this winter. I doubt we'll have a look at it again. I suppose if we have that final burst of warming, or when we get the final burst of warming, we might have a look at it then. But I wouldn't expect to see these charts showing up again for this season. Anyway, this is how things are looking at 10 HPA. Again, that's the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere at 10 HPA. And that's how the temperature is looking today. So again, it is cooling down, but it's still a little bit above average. We go through to 96 hours, and the ECMWF is forecasting just cooler temperatures at that point. We get through to day 10, the 13th of March, and again, we may be a little bit colder than average with the temperature at 10 HPA by then. Again, no sign of any further renewed warming of the stratosphere in the coming sort of week to 10 days. The zonal winds, which went into reverse, they have gone back into positive territory. So when we had that big warming of the stratosphere, it sent the zonal winds into reverse, which was the precursor to setting up the Scandinavian high. There's the confirmation that the zonal winds went into reverse. That's where we are right now. We are positive with the zonal winds, and it's forecast, a black line here at the end, that is forecasting the zonal winds to increase their strength, albeit at quite a lowish level. After such a major warming of the stratosphere, we're probably not going to get back to, or we won't get back to this sort of level where we was earlier in the winter. We have very strong zonal winds at 1 HPA. But the reversal has ended, and so you can expect to start to see the polar vortex trying to reform anyway over the next few weeks. This is the Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line here shows where we've been with the Arctic Oscillation. Red lines at the end where GFS Sombel's forecasting the Arctic Oscillation to go. So with that sudden stratospheric warming and the reversal of the zonal winds, we very substantially increased the blocking signal, and that set up the high pressure over Scandinavia. As that happened, because the weather drives the index, as that happened, the NAO went through the floor, and in fact we are still at a very, very negative level with the NAO, with the AO I should say, right now, the Arctic Oscillation. We are forecast by the GFS ensembles to slowly lift the Arctic Oscillation back up, but really, it looks like it's staying in mainly negative territory through to the middle part of March. Anyway, we do have a few ensemble members who are going positive with the AO by the end of the run, which is taking us just into the second half of March. But most of these GFS ensemble members are keeping the Arctic oscillation negative, albeit nowhere near as negative as we are right now. Again, that's where we are right now. So an increase in the AO, yes, up to middle part of March, but it looks like the AO will be staying in negative territory to mid-month anyway. So just a relaxing, if you like, of a blocking signal, which is what is allowing the 4 to begin to set in for the UK. NAO is very similar. Again, black line shows where we've been with the NAO. The red lines at the end where GFS Sun was forecasting the NAO to go. We didn't go as negative with the NAO as we did with the AO, but nevertheless, we did go into significantly negative territory as this blocking increased around Scandinavia, and we are still very negative, really, with the NAO. Again, very similar to what the AO is doing, the NAO is being predicted by the GFS symbols to gradually lift up. So by the middle part of March, we are back to sort of neutral conditions with the North Atlantic oscillation. So this is all telling us that through the next week to 10 days, we're going to see the blocking signals sort of relaxing quite a lot. We're going to see the atmosphere after going through a very abnormal period with the blocking in the Scandinavian high and the beast of the east. We're going to see the atmosphere trying anyway to get itself back into some semblance of normality. Remember, the weather is always looking for equilibrium. You can never find it, but it's always looking for it. And so you can't maintain these very unusual conditions for all that long. The climate, the weather will always try to get itself back to a neutral sort of state, and that's what we're seeing there, relaxing of the blocking signature in the next week to 10 days. Right, so these are the GFS ensembles for the next 2 weeks. Looking at Canterbury today. Someone's asked me to have a look at the ensemble for Canterbury. Red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average. That's where we are right now. So we've come out of a freeze. Remember, a few days ago, we was down here at minus 15 at 850 HPA. That's the reason it was so very, very cold a couple of days ago. But we've come back up now with the upper air temperatures, and we are back close to the 30-year average, and we're not going to deviate all that much from the 30-year average actually over the next few days. It's a bit of a warmer spike period just there. That's what I'm talking about at the start of the video. We're going to see the first push of spring warmth for Spain and France next weekend. That's going to get to southern parts of the UK to some degree, but it's probably going to fuel a very vigorous area of low pressure. So I would suspect the upshot of that will be that we get a lot of rain, maybe some very strong winds next weekend. After that, going into the middle part of March, this period just here, it's all a bit messy really, but certainly no signs of anything definitively cold, although again, no real signs of true spring setting up either. We do have a few ensemble members, including this morning's operational run, which does get quite cold through this middle part of March. But I think that, at least for a time anyway, I think that is too far out to have too much confidence in. What we can say is that we are in for a lot of precipitation. So you'll notice all these spikes down here at the bottom of the chart. It really does look like we're in for a very wet time of it over the next few weeks. So really quite an unsettled, very wet, potentially at times, first half to March coming up. This is what the surface temperatures are looking like for Canterbury. So starting off around there, it has turned less cold compared to recently. We stay at that sort of level for a while. Into weekend, we might get the temperature at or even above 10 degrees down in the south, but then signs of a bit of a cool down as we go into the second half of the ensemble, which takes us kind of like to the middle part of March. Few frosty nights showing up there, but again, nothing definitively cold. It looks like, for the time being anyway, we've certainly had the worst of the winter weather. And in fact, I say for the time being, but there's no way I don't think we're going to go back to the beast from the east, such as we had. I mean, it may get cold again in the next few weeks, but we won't be bringing in the -15 isotherm for this sort of spring, at least. Temperature anomalies look like that, coming out a little bit colder than average for the UK and for Ireland. Notice France is beginning to go a little bit milder than average now on these charts. This is the anomaly for the 4th to 12th of March. A little bit milder than average for France, telling us that that first push of spring warmth is heading into some western parts of Europe next weekend. But for the UK, for Ireland, for Scandinavia, it remains quite cold with the temperature anomalies in the week ahead. Precipitation anomalies from the 4th to 12th of March, they're coming out above average, not just for the UK, but for most of Western Europe as well, particularly down across Spain and Portugal, actually. So if you know anybody that's planning to have a holiday down there next week or two, they could be in for a lot of really quite wet weather. But the whole of Western Europe, actually, is looking above average with rainfall, just confirming what we already saw in the ensemble, that we are in for quite a wet spell for the first half of March. This is how the GFS is looking for Thursday, then low pressure around the country, bringing showers or longer spells of rain. Then we go through to the end of the week and the weekend, and we're bringing up these southwesterly winds from Spain in towards France. That's that first push of spring warmth that I was talking about. Excuse me, but we've got low pressure off the coast of Portugal. That's driving that push of warmth, but it's also bringing a lot of wet weather as well. There's the upper air temperatures for next Saturday, and it's looking really pleasantly warm, actually, across France, down into Spain and Portugal. We might get temperatures up to 20 degrees somewhere like Paris next weekend. But the downside of that is that there's a big contrast in temperatures, because just to our north and west, we've actually got quite cold upper air temperatures, and that's going to mean for us we've got a big temperature gradient from the north of Scotland down in towards the north of France. There's a big temperature gradient which is going to fuel, probably anyway, going to fuel quite an intense area of low pressure. So that's how things are looking next Sunday. This is Mothering Sunday, and it doesn't look great for anybody that wants to have a day out for Mothering Sunday, because we've got quite a vigorous area of low pressure there that will be bringing heavy rain. There's potential for strong winds around that as well. And on the northern edge, I wouldn't totally rule out the chance of some snow. Actually, the northern edge would likely be southern Scotland, possibly to parts of northern England, particularly so over the Pennines. Those are the upper air temperatures for next Sunday. So quite warm to our south, and those mild upper air temperatures are getting into England and Wales, but it does look fairly cold for Scotland and Northern Ireland. So again, a big temperature contrast fueling that area of low pressure. Now, as we go beyond next weekend, in towards Monday the 12th, that low pressure is moving away to the east, and that starts to allow colder air to return from the north again. So we get rid of all those warm upper air temperatures that we had just to our south and east. They push off into Eastern Europe, and we start to bring down colder upper air temperatures from the north, and then we start trying to build a bit of a ridge down within those colder upper air temperatures. So that's a bit of a cold snap showing up there around the 13th of March. But the upper air temperatures, they look quite cold as well. Nothing like as cold as we had, don't worry if you got too cold with the beast from the east. There's no return to that. But certainly cold, bit of a cold snap showing up there for the middle part of March. And then the Atlantic has a go at coming back in, and that's struggling a little bit against that cold air. So that's how things are looking, but just beyond day 10, which is Thursday the 15th of March, with low pressure just to our south and pulling in quite a cold east to northeasterly wind. And there is a potential bit of snow with that as well. For the south it would be rain, but on the northern edge, which again is kind of like southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, there is a risk of snow there. And then that low pressure clears away, and we turn the winds into the north. This is quite a cold middle part of March, but showing up here. Then the high pressure begins to topple in, and we start to try and get wind back in to the west again. Finally, having a look at the ECMWF. So this is how things are looking for Thursday. Again, low pressure very close to the country, bringing showers or longer spells of rain. Into the weekend, we have that first warm push of the spring across Spain and France. That's trying to get that warm air to us, but problem for us is that we've got a big temperature contrast, so we're probably producing quite a lot of rain and maybe some fairly strong winds as well. That's how things look on Sunday the 11th of March, a week away. Low pressure just to our southwest could bring gale force winds to southern and western parts of the country, and no doubt quite a lot of heavy rain as well. That low pressure moves through as we head up towards day 10, and that's how we look by day 10, which is Wednesday the 14th of March. Notice we're trying to build the Scandinavian high again. But actually, that's very mild. We've got winds in from the south, and we are pulling up some pretty warm air, actually, there from sort of Spain and the Mediterranean. So that will probably be our first sort of outbreak of spring for the middle part of March. Although, if the Scandinavian high strengthened, we will very quickly start to turn the winds into the east. You always expect easterly winds in the spring because the Atlantic, the jet stream is rapidly weakening. By the time you get to May, actually you tend to get quite prolonged runs of easterly winds. But of course, by then, there's no cold air to tap into across Russia, so those winds by May from the east are never particularly cold, though they can drag in some pretty grey and dreary days to the east. Right, so that's brought you up to date with everything. Basically, the big freeze is rapidly diminishing now. It's still pretty cold across Scotland. There's still a little bit of snow up in the north, but in the south it's rapidly thawing out, and this will accelerate over the next day or two. And then it looks like we're in for a very unsettled first half to March. That's the main seal. There may be a bit of a cold snap showing up there in around a week's time as well, more particularly with the GFS, less so with the ECM, but a little bit of a cold snap possible in around a week or so's time, but very unsettled, I think, is the main message for the first half of March. Right, that's all for now. Come back this afternoon for your sneak peek for the summer, but that's all for now, and thanks for watching.